Hello and good evening. Tonight I'm a little bit tired, but I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I don't want to put something aside that can be done later. I want to do it now because waiting is not a good thing, because you can forget the things that you really want to express. So even though I'm tired, I'm going to talk about my theory of neutrality. Now my theory of neutrality has to do with the actual speed of light, and is it possible to go beyond the speed of light. In my other videos I addressed that, and yes, it is feasible to go beyond the speed of light, but you got to understand what happens at that point. Now we know by some of our research given up to date that when we accelerate things at a high rate of speed, things do slow down, or time itself slows down. And I came with the idea, people always say that time is relevant and that it is, a mental structure, you know what I mean, how we would perceive time. I think time is a substance. And it's plausible that it is a substance because you got to think of it like this. When you reach a point where you slow time down, you're actually having an effect. Okay, an actual effect on your physical surroundings. Okay, so if say I'm moving at beyond the speed of light and time is slowing down for me. Okay, and it's going to have an effect on my physiology, which it's a direct effect, so it has substance, it has the ability to interact with other things. So time itself, to me, is a fabric, it has substance. So it's not just an idea or preconceived notion. Time actually has substance. It's tangible. It's the only way I can describe it. Okay, now about the theory of neutrality. Now, once we reach the speed of light and we start to proceed going beyond the speed of light, okay, we've seen this with galaxies, where galaxies actually recede themselves, even though they're moving at that high rate of speed. They're receding one another. And the thing is, when you get to a certain point, I believe, from my theory, you reach a certain velocity or speed that when time will come to a point of stillness, which I call neutrality. And the thing is, now that I've thought about this theory of neutrality, I think that I can expand upon it. When you get to that point of neutrality, that's when space and time moves around you. You're like a bubble in time, and like the wind. Imagine like being in a wind tunnel, and wind is going over top and underneath an object, right? Well, you're that bubble in space. You're at that the point of neutrality. You're at a neutral point where space and time move around you. You don't move, but space and time moves around you. So this idea of interplanetary travel is very plausible, and I believe that's how they do it. Okay, so now to move on with more factors of neutrality, I believe that if you can go beyond that speed, like say if you can accelerate beyond the speed of neutrality, which it may be possible, but our technology doesn't have a way of describing it, but I'm just hypothesizing on it. So if I'm able to propel this bubble in space, or this object in space, wherever, and I'm at that point of neutrality, and I can move beyond the point of neutrality, I can move into a frame called negative time. So what I'm actually doing is I'm buying time. Do you see what I'm trying to say? It's like you're collecting time. So each time that I'm pushing beyond that point of neutrality, I'm gaining extra time. It's not so much going into the past, because that's the first thing people think, oh, that you're traveling into the past. No, the difference is you're traveling in an area where you're actually gathering time. Okay? And if you think about it, at the point of neutrality, time is present. So everything around it is present to its central figure, to its central point. Okay, where neutrality is. And if that's the case, then if time doesn't exist in that time span, right? So time, time can move around this, right? So this object can literally go from one point to the next without losing time. Okay? And what I'm saying by gathering time, now if it's possible, like I hypothesized, to repel something that's in a neutral state in space, moving at beyond the speed of light and beyond, to a point of neutrality, like I said, and it can be propelled faster than that point of neutrality, they can actually gather time. And in doing so, you can actually slow time down, or you're gathering time. Now, I wouldn't even call it slowing down time. You're gathering time, like, you know what I mean. You got a bunch of time, and you can use a little bit of it, at a time. You're gathering time, and I had to work a little bit more on structuring what I'm trying to form and saying this, where time takes a different point of understanding. It's not the time that what we judge, like here on Earth, like hours, minutes, and seconds. This is a whole separate type of time. Like with interdimensional travel, time is maybe not relevant in another dimensional space. You know what I'm trying to say? You're stepping outside of this fabric of time, okay, into a different fabric of their concept of time, or what time is for them. See, that's what I'm saying. And they'd already talked about string theory, about the multiple universes, and how each universe has a different role. Well, the role of time in that different universe may be totally different than the way we perceive time here. And like I said, I believe that time is a substance, and the substance of time may be different in different dimensions. And you gotta kind of imagine and think into things to really see what's going on, because you got to use the higher aspects of your learning and your understanding. It starts with an imagination or a thought, and then you work on it, and that's how you come up with these ideas. Now, you might term this fantasy, but in actuality, it applies. These principles apply to what Einstein was talking about, and it applies to what other scientists have been talking about. What I've done is just give it a little more gravity and a little more life. That there is a possibility of point of neutrality, a stillness where time stands still and time moves around that point. Say if you're encapsulated in this bubble, right, in space and time, and time and space moves around you, it can move forward, backwards, sideways, whatever, because we don't understand the inner workings of things outside the time fabric we live in. Okay, like I said, a time is a substance. Okay, and when you're moving into another dimension or another area of beyond this universe, you're stepping into a point where the fabric of time may be altered or different than the way we see time. And you can't describe it unless you've been there. But you can get a general idea of what I'm trying to say, that when you reach that peak point, that peak speed of velocity in space, to where you come neutral or still, that things change. And then when you go through, if it's possible to move beyond that point of neutrality to where you can actually move into negative time, and actually what I'm saying, gathering time, just like a building up of time, okay, then our concept of time may be altered that way too. See, I mean, we can only perceive things from what we see, this focal point in our reality, okay? They've already said that, some people have said that these extraterrestrial beings that are moving through the galaxies and all that stuff, are moving at such a rate of speed that they're actually moving through interdimensional time. That's the reason why they can elapse so much space and distance without aging, okay? Because if they would travel at the speed of light, they would cease to exist before they even thought of getting here, okay? and we wouldn't be here probably by the time they did get here if they were possible to live that long. So we understand that substance, like I'm saying, the substance of time changes depending on how fast you're moving, and if you get to that point of neutrality, or that 0 point I call it, okay? It's just like a numbers line. You got a side of positive numbers on one side and a bunch of negative numbers on the other side. Then you have 0, which has no value, but it has value because it's absolute. It's unchangeable. It's 0, okay? But on each side of the number line you have positive and negative numbers. Well, positive numbers are different than negative numbers in the way they affect things, okay? So that's the only way I can give to you in layman's term what I'm trying to describe. But I'm going to go on with more of my research on neutrality, and when I come up with more of an idea on what's going on and what's happening, and what my next video will be more on what is the substance of time, why is time a substance, and what does it mean to me and to the science community. I'm going to be back and I'll talk to you more. Peace out.